Welcome everybody, I'm Rose from Guardians of Sane Holistic Kids, and I'm sitting with Colleen Harkin, who's from the Institute of Public Affairs, and we're going to be talking about the state of our education system and what exactly our children are learning. And I saw Colleen speak last night and I was shocked with the information coming forward, so I'm really excited to sit here and share this information with you. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
So I head up what's called the Class Action Program within the Institute of Public Affairs, and our focus is on primary and secondary schools. The IPA also has an oversight on what's going on in the universities and the childcare centres. Class Action is specifically about what's going on in the education system. So it's got nothing to do with the law, it's all about the classroom.
Yes, fantastic. And you have experience, your background is a teacher.
Yeah, a long time ago, but so I did my Masters in Education a long time ago. I stood out of teaching for quite some time and then went back as an emergency teacher just to keep my registration alive, and I was genuinely shocked at the changes that had occurred in that period of time, which has sort of brought me around sort of full circle in this sort of oversight view of what can we do about that, because what is going on in the classrooms is genuinely quite shocking, and most parents don't really have that oversight, and very few people have a view that sort of says what was going on that was good, that we should have kept, and what's happening now.
Yeah, okay, so in terms of how we compare to the rest of the world, where's Australia sitting?
Not well. So the OECD runs an international assessment called the PISA program, which is the program for international student assessment, and about 80 countries participate in that every 3 years. And Australia's results consistently have gone backwards year on year. So an average 15-year-old in Australia now is more than a year and a half behind where an average 15-year-old was, say, 20 years ago, 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And compared to our neighbours, our regional neighbours. So Singapore leads the ladder, but our students in maths are 4 years behind Singapore.
Oh, that's massive. But at one point we were comparative with them, weren't we?
Well, and this is sort of part of the smoke and mirrors that goes on. So the report that came out, the most recent PISA results will say, yay, Australia's in the top 10, which is true, but everybody else has gone backwards. Our results have also have gone backwards and has stagnated since 2018. So we haven't improved. It's just that other countries have shifted around their positions on the ladder.
Right.
So our results are still very, very poor.
Yes, it's all about how you present the data.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. And what you can sort of present it as being, find the one little tiny bit of nugget in there and run with that line. Yeah, we're in the top 10.
Yeah.
But our top 10 is still, years behind where we were years ago.
Okay, so if that's the case, we our teachers are being educated to educate our children. So what are our teachers being taught?
So the IPA has done an audit of the what's called the initial teacher training courses. So all the courses around Australia that offer the university degrees in order to become a teacher. And people would be quite shocked at the amount of what I'll call woke units that are available. About a year and a third of a 4-year bachelor degree is spent on, social justice, colonialism, all of those sorts of a political ideology, rather than actually learning how to be a good teacher.
Yeah.
So at the end of the 4 years, our teachers are coming out not prepared for the challenge of a classroom, and our classrooms are very challenging.
Yeah.
The PISA results that I just mentioned, our classrooms are 71st out of 80 for classroom discipline environment.
That's insane.
They're very challenging classrooms, but some of the worst in the world.
Wow.
So our teachers are going in, with all the good intentions in the world and the incredible HECS debt that they incur to do this, and they come out with as social justice warriors, because that's what they've been taught is all about being a teacher.
Yes.
And not able to how to teach kids how to learn, and critical thinking and managing a classroom and all those skills that you need as a teacher.
Yeah, we've gotten feedback from our group that people who are doing the course have removed themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're not in line with the ideology that's being taught. And teachers who have students in their class are just not sure how education is going to go,
Yeah.
because these students coming in and not knowing how to manage the classroom.
Yeah, and look, don't quote me on this stat because I might have it have it slightly wrong, but I think it's about 60% of people who start the teaching degree drop out.
Yeah.
It might even be 70%. It's higher than every other course.
Wow.
And I would suggest that it's because they know they're not learning how to be a good teacher.
Yeah.
My favourite one to cite is a unit called "Is Skin Colour a Pigment of Your Imagination?" I mean, how does that help someone become a really good teacher? And I think the students know that they're being dudded. That they're not learning how to be a great teacher.
Yeah. Okay. So if that's what they're learning, what are our kids learning?
Well, the national curriculum is rife with issues of social justice, climate change, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders histories and culture. That's embedded into every subject at every year level, from foundation all the way through, every day. So maths, for example, is children are taught how to count in maths through Aboriginal dance. Science is taught through the prism of saying that Aboriginals were the first scientists, and that there's an emergency that the world is we're all going to die from climate change. So these what they call the cross curriculum priorities is stated in the national curriculum of what has to be immersed in every subject all the time. So our children are their academic studies are polluted. They're not getting a good crack at subject integrity, and there's only so much time in a school day. So by the time we've been at school a few years, our grade 3 students who are 9 years old are already well behind where they need to be. So the NAPLAN results that came out yesterday, 500,000 students across Australia are not meeting minimum benchmark, and that starts from the time, that's all of our students. So by the time they're in grade 3, they're already behind. They haven't been taught how to do phonics, read, write, count, all those foundational skills that they need in order to be able to spiral through to become independent in their learning. Our students are, as 15-year-olds, are way behind where they were years ago, and 34% or something of the nation's children are not meeting minimum standard. Minimum.
Yeah. Which is affecting us as we progress as a country.
100%. So I often say to people, most parents don't have anything to compare with. Most parents love their children, think their children are fantastic, great. But even if your child's doing okay and the one next to you is not, you will eventually be affected by that. Because in 10 years' time, all of these 15-year-olds who are not meeting minimum standard, and they're out in the workforce, or unemployment benefits, or additional pressure on government services, or there's a whole lot of ramifications of this. So even those people who think their own child is doing okay, taxes, everybody suffers from this.
Absolutely. And how are our children feeling about what they're learning?
Well, that's the really insulting and very worrying part of it. The increase in mental health in children particularly is extraordinary. So Lancet did an international study over 10,000 students of 16 years plus, and they found that 75% of them on a daily basis feel very stressed and anxious and angry and sad and all of those negative emotions on a daily basis, worried about climate change. They feel that a lot of them, 45% of them, are saying that they won't have their own children because the world's going to implode. They've got nothing to look forward to. The weight that is being put on our children's shoulders is incredible.
You shared a story last night about the whale and the child at night.
Yes. So, and that's plenty of them. So the notion is it's a worksheet. It's an English grammar lesson for about grade 3, so they're 8 or 9 years old. And instead of the scenario being, the people are sitting on the chair, or the people is sitting on the chair, and you're teaching children the correct grammar of is or are, the plural and singular, The worksheets are things like the whales are dying from climate change or the whales is dying from climate change. So the messaging that the whales are dying from climate change is a factual, is given. And I mean, I get stories all the time from parents with children coming home worried and sad about whales, about the stolen generation. I've had a message from a person with a 4-year-old crying about if their house is going to be taken off them because they're on stolen land, and whether the stolen children are going to come back.
Yeah.
So this messaging is constant in their day. And, I mention it all the time that children don't go home and have that conversation with their parents. They're too young. They're being indoctrinated. This is being put into their head. And you only know about it when your child is upset. And by that stage, the damage has already been done.
Yeah.
The message has already been that when they're 5 and 6 years old, they're saying sorry for the stolen children.
We're traumatising our children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So where does this curriculum come from? Like, who's deciding that our children should be traumatised?
Yeah, so there's a government bureaucratic department called ACARA, which is the Australian Curriculum and Assessment Reporting Authority. Now, ACARA run the NAPLAN tests, and they run NAPCC, which is the equivalent for civics and citizenship. They run the My Schools website, that sort of stuff. They're a bureaucracy, and they write the national curriculum. It's a behemoth document, and all of the state and territory ministers sign off on what's in the national curriculum, and then they draw down from it. So you couldn't implement everything that's in the national curriculum because it's too large, but that's an agreed document that everybody is working from.
And I believe there's a lot of funding that goes towards that as well.
Well, ACARA costs about $30 million a year to run. It doesn't run any schools. It has about 450 staff. It has a CEO and a board and all of that sort of stuff. So it's not a cheap exercise to run, but it's not involved in actually the running of the school. It mandates what has to be taught in the schools.
Okay. So what are your concerns?
Everything. Look, the real issue from the IPA and the class action point of view, we advocate for the removal of the cross curriculum priority. We actually advocate for the removal of ACARA and the national curriculum. That would be the ideal light on the hill, because we would give control back to the states to decentralise that information, give control back to the states and give the states back to the local scenario, give parents way more control about what's happening in their schools and what their children are being taught. If that's too big a bite to chew, we would say, as a bare minimum, remove the cross-curriculum priorities. So reinforce subject integrity.
Yes.
And put Australian history, warts and all, at an age where the students are able to discuss, understand the complexities, talk about the stolen generation, how that happened, why, talk about Australian history, colonisation, was it good, bad, indifferent, sort of give them all of the information, factual information, and definitely remove it from 4 and 5-year-olds being forced to say sorry.
Absolutely. And when we're looking at age development, we're also looking at biology versus identity and how that's been infiltrated into this curriculum.
So the new document that's called Becoming, Belonging
and Being,
the Childcare and Kindergarten Foundation document, it actually specifically states that this is a time for safety and children exploring their gender. And these are 3 and 4-year-olds. So that the vocabulary of parent and mother and father is not used at all in the document, like zero.
Yeah.
So again, that sort of push of a political ideology and activism within that starts as the moment the child walks through the childcare or the kindergarten.
Yeah, and we can see that with the marketing that they have up.
Absolutely. So, it actually states, the presence of an Aboriginal flag and an LGBT flag. It doesn't promote having an Australian flag.
Yeah, okay. So as parents, what can we do? How can we assist? How can we represent ourselves? How do we get involved?
So I always say to people that your child is not a ward of the state. Always remember that your child is your responsibility. You are your child's biggest champion. And to, be the nosy Parker. It's your child. Talk to the school about what they're doing. Don't accept that third parties are coming in and teaching things that you don't know anything about. Again, that's the issue of you find out after the event when the damage has already been done. Gather together, talk. just speak up. Really, is the biggest issue is that people tend to be afraid to say something. They tend to be worried that their child will suffer as a result of their speaking up. But silence is compliance.
Absolutely.
While we all sort of sit and say nothing, that sort of undercurrent continues to not only happen but to grow and to become accepted.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we always promote that. You know, parents get together, form groups, go and make an appointment with the principal, go have a chat to them, let them know what your concerns are, see if there are alternative options. You know, if you don't like a certain third-party provider, see what alternatives are available. There's some amazing groups that we especially know about in South Australia. So yeah, let's all get together.
Yeah. And look, you know, I'll give ourselves a plug. The class action material that we provide for free, that parents and teachers can come to and download. Our focus tends to be on history, civics, citizenship, energy, those sorts of cultural issues. We haven't sort of delved yet much into the science. We will do climate and all those sorts of things, but as we roll them out, we just put them on the website and they're free for people to download.
And they're so easy because everything's done and the teacher gets the information and presents it, you know, all the worksheets.
All the answers to the worksheets. And we're not asking teachers to not comply with their professional obligations. So all of the markers that are in the national curriculum are there to justify its use. What we've done is we've gone through and we found the areas to justify being able to give a message, for example, about the First Fleet and their real story, because the First Fleet doesn't really get a mention in the national curriculum, and when it does, it's that they're invaders.
Yes.
So, you know, sort of positioning that to sort of say, well, there's a much bigger story here to tell.
Yes, and that's where we need to be coming from, is that they're getting one story.
Correct.
So we need to broaden
It's
that.
what they receive is a very limited activist agenda, and it's not doing our country or our children any good at all.
Yeah, it's quite dangerous.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I really appreciate your time and your wealth of information. And yeah, get onto the website if you want further information.
Class-action.org.au.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thanks.